The Los Angeles Lakers are not in the NBA playoffs, but now neither are the Clippers. Today I'll be chatting with Kelvin Washington of the Marcellus And Kelvin Show on ESPNLA about the rivalry between the two franchises, plus we'll catch up on all the latest Paul George talk. Now before I jump into today's show, I want to open up the Paul George discussion a little bit. So here's a deal I've got for you. Go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this show. Now, in your review, explain what you think the Lakers should offer the Pacers for Paul George. I'll read some of the best ones on next week's show, and I'm really interested to read what everybody has to say on this topic. I'm sure you guys have a lot of opinions. So again, go rate, review our show, also subscribe, and in your review, explain what you would deal for Paul George. Now let's get to today's show. My name is Trevor Lane, and this is Courtcast by Lakers Nation. I've got Kelvin Washington of ESPNLA with me today. Kelvin, thanks so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me.
Hey, so normally we start off just diving straight into Lakers talk on this show, but occasionally there are things that happen outside of the Los Angeles Lakers world, or at least on the outskirts of the Lakers world that we have to talk about. And one of the big topics that's going on right now is unfortunately all the cuts going on at ESPN. I know the basketball world is in complete shock, as is the entire sports world, over everything that's been happening, some of the big names that have been let go. What's the feel like over there at ESPN right now?
That's a great question. And as you know, it's a difficult time for a lot of my personal friends and colleagues. I just the other day, I had a colleague who was fine. You know, she still has her job, but she was very emotional discussing it and talking about it because her mentor and her friend had been let go. And I think, you know, this is something that's happened to everyone in every industry. I'd say, obviously, since the last recession we had, I think a lot of people have gone through this. And I mean, think about it. If you're in the auto industry, you really went through this some years ago. So it's just a part that has hit everyone in all facets of life. But I think that maybe ESPN being, you know, the behemoth, is being so big that maybe many people thought, you know, it would never be affected. People are starting to cut the cord. It wouldn't affect ESPN and so many other things. But eventually, you know, it hits everyone. And so the last couple of years, it's hit ESPN, actually, to be honest with you. I've been fortunate where I've been able to, to continue to have my job. But I consider myself grateful and blessed because anything can happen to anyone at any time. I'm not going to lie. It was shocking, some of the names, let's be honest, you know, and how big these people are and how long they've been with the company and how, you're just kind of used to either seeing them or hearing them depending on their outlet or their medium. But, it wasn't pleasant. And again, for me personally, a very good friend of mine, was let go. I would say a large portion of the reason why I'm even at ESPN. So difficult times. But again, I won't make it ESPN exclusive. While we're one of the bigger name, if not the biggest name in sports as far as, media. Again, everyone, your subscribers, your listeners to your podcast, I mean, they all have gone through something similar, or have family members. So it's one of those, it's tough, very difficult, but it's also life.
Yeah, and that's a great connection as far as the recent recession, the Great Recession that we had, because it was so recent. I think it means that everybody can really feel what these reporters and personalities are dealing with, because this is something that did hit home for a lot of people recently and is still really hitting our country. We're still pulling out of that. So when you see guys from the basketball world that I've looked up to for a long time, like Mark Stein, Henry Abbott, of course, Chad Ford, I mean, these are some major names that people are used to following, and to see them suddenly gone is shocking. And of course, we can definitely empathize with them. Do you have a feel for what the plan is at ESPN moving forward, what the shift is going to be towards? Because it feels like that was a big part of their core there that's now gone.
Yeah, and I can't speak really on that as far as what's next. I would imagine that, it's from here on out. Let's broaden it out a bit. ESPN. I don't care if it's Fox Sports. I don't care if it's HBO. I mean, media outlets, networks. They're gonna have to, get smart and get lean and figure out ways to continue to produce great content, but find ways to get it out with maybe, less people making it happen. When you were successful, during, when you're eating good and things are growing well, right? You can do whatever you want. You can have more people doing this. Let's have, we only need really maybe 4 or 5 people to produce this thing. Let's have 8 just to be sure. And now I think those days are gone. And I think, everyone, is going to have to kind of find innovative ways to still continue to produce great content. But, again, have a smaller staff doing so. But here's the thing. Let's find the positivity in this. There's always change in life. For instance, if you were in the 1920s or the 1930s, and you either manufactured radios or stereos, or you were in the radio business, you were a personality, a salesperson, exec, you were living life fabulously, right? You're the king. Yep. Well, then all of a sudden this invention called the television comes along. And now all of a sudden you have competition, you have things you have to adapt to. And so I think, again, with not only the internet itself, but I think social media more importantly, I think things have changed. We used to watch SportsCenter all night. I was just talking about this with some guys of mine. I mean, you'd watch SportsCenter all night. You watch the loop of highlights because you had to wait. Oh, I missed the Bulls and Knicks game. Well, I got to wait all night to see it. And now you didn't even mean to see the Bulls Knicks highlight before it's already in your face via social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be. You already saw Jimmy Butler dunk all over Carmelo because it's, hey, man, did you see this? Your buddy texts you a link. So things are happening in real time. Things are happening, and people are getting their information that way in their entertainment. So therefore, you have to adjust. So positive way to look at it is I just spoke to Cal State Fullerton the other day, and I told these young people, I said, look, when things change, when things evolve, well, then therefore there's opportunity to the evolving thing. So if it's now not our non-traditional, you're used to seeing your host on television and he's hosting this show, this highlight show. Well, maybe he's doing it now, but maybe he's doing it for Verizon, maybe he's doing it for some service, some cellular service, or maybe he's doing it for an app now. And those things it's foreign to us because we, again, been used to since 1979 ESPN being the way that we've seen it, but things changed.
Yeah, definitely. That I guess that really is the one constant in life is that things are always changing, especially with technology. I mean, and like you said, in just the 20th century, we leapt forward so quickly. Things have changed so fast and are continuing to change as technology evolves that yeah, I guess at some point there was going to have to be a shift in the sports world, and this has been a big one, and one that we're going to continue to look for. And of course, we all have our thoughts out with those people who did lose their jobs, and hopefully they catch on somewhere else pretty quickly. And I'm pretty sure they will because they're all very, very talented people. Yep,
they're very talented. You worked for the biggest company. I think you're going to be in high demand. I'm hoping. And the other thing, I'll end it with this, is that I think also something to take from this is the ability to maybe be to diversify and also to kind of self-produce. I think you're going to see a lot of people I guess you can say because of this, meaning they were laid off, or because of it, and you're maybe on the outside looking in, you say, maybe I should do my own thing. I think you're going to have a lot of people continue to start, branding themselves and have their own website, their own streaming, ways of getting out their information and content. And you're going to find people start to have their own such-and-such.com, and such-and-such blog and such-and-such podcast where they're creating their own things and maybe even monetizing on it and creating a living that way.
Yep, could be a whole new landscape as we're starting to see. Of course, we talk about athletes all the time creating their own brand, and that may be a shift that we see in media as well.
Yep, I mean, it's going to be. I'm absolutely positive of that. In fact, you're already seeing it. In fact, we're doing it right now. We're talking on.
That's right. We are part of the change. So let's dig into the playoffs a little bit because That's what's going on right now. We're recording the show actually on a Saturday. It's not going to post until Monday, but as of right now, at this moment, the Clippers and the Utah Jazz are tied up at 3-3, and we know they're going to be playing in Game 7. So by the time this airs, people will know who has moved on, whether it was the Clippers or the Jazz. Given that the Clippers have home court, I'm kind of leaning towards the Clippers winning that Game 7, but it's been a fantastic series. What's the feeling been like in Los Angeles around the Clippers? Are more people focused on the Lakers and their draft or the Clippers and the playoffs right now?
Well, first off, Trevor, you used an adjective I don't agree with. You said fantastic series. Let's not get carried away there. It's been an aight series. It would have been a fantastic series if Blake Griffin was there and it went to Game 7 and you thought, man, if the Clippers pull this out and then they go up full strength, fully healthy against the Warriors, then we'd have an even better series.
Sure.
So I don't think it's been fantastic. I think it's been a whirlwind where the emotions are high one way or the other. If you hate the Clippers, then look at, man, the Clippers going to clip. Look at the Clippers. This is what they do. They're the curse of the Clippers. And Chris Paul can't do this. And Steve Blake isn't as good as we thought. And he can't stay healthy. And so I think if you're a Clipper hater, this has been the series you love in that, you can point your finger and say, see, this is why I don't like them. If you're a Clipper lover, it gives you a built-in excuse, right? You can say, well, see, man, we weren't fully healthy again. If we were fully healthy, we would have done fill in the blank. So for me, I've been in the middle of very frustrated because I wanted them to be fully healthy so that they could give it one more go so that we can either say, man, look, if it's, in time to not break it up. I've never been a break it up proponent of that. But to tweak it, to make a change here or there, someone has to go, or maybe a coach has to go, whatever the case may be. But now I knew the minute Blake went down, I said, see, now they're going to re-up and say, see, one more shot, one more crack at it.
Right.
But when you ask about, I think the Lakers still are king. I don't think that's going to change. However, I do think for the first time, there's been maybe a lull with the Lakers, meaning not only are they bad, they're not even entertaining. You can be, there are some teams in the NBA that are bad, but you can point your finger at a thing or two and say, woo, man, next year,
Sure.
Or you can, if you're a Timberwolves fan, this season didn't go as well as you thought, but you can maybe say, wow, Andrew Wiggins is going to be an all-star next year. Karl Anthony Towns for sure will be an all-star, and you can kind of point at a few things and say, man, maybe we get rid of Rubio and we get the. If you're a Phoenix Suns fan, you got to watch a guy drop 70 on the Celtics head and Devin Booker. So even bad teams have generally something you can point to or that you can hang on. And with the Lakers, I mean, my goodness. I guess it's Brandon Ingram, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
I think. So it's been a rough go for them. But I think one thing I'll say is the Laker fans have had no choice but to grow increasingly patient. And I think I've witnessed that, their patience a bit this year.
Yeah, well, first of all, when I said fantastic about the Clippers and Jazz series, I mainly meant that the games have been close. It hasn't necessarily been pretty basketball, and of course with Gobert going down and
I
Griffin going down.
I think you're ageist. I think you're ageist. What you're saying is it's been fantastic because who knew 47-year-old Joe Johnson could be the best player in the series a couple of times. That's what you're trying to say. ISO Joe is getting down on the Clippers. Who knew?
That may be part of it too, just because Joe Johnson, I feel his pain. He's the same age as me, so I get it. I know what it's like to feel it when you just can't quite do the same things that you could, and then you have those few days where suddenly everything breaks right for you and you can put up some points. So yeah, it has been kind of fun watching Joe Johnson. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it too, is that in real life, regular life, the age in which he is, I'm 35, so we're all around the same age here, and that's relatively, we're young still, we're still young whippersnappers, as some of my uncles would say. But in sports, I mean, my goodness, like Kobe Bryant is exactly 3 years older than me. We have the same exact birthday. When he was playing his last season, I mean, he seemed like he was 47. Didn't he? 52?
Oh, yeah.
Granted, every time I say an age, it might go up. 63. I don't know. It seemed like, because, again, sports ages you so much. I mean, Ray Lewis playing his last year, he had to have been like someone's grandfather who was still athletic was out on the field. So it's funny to see what sports will do to you, too. In regular life, you're actually still a relatively young man.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When I get up in the morning, I'm feeling aches and pains and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's amazing what some of these guys can still do, even though they have been battling age and injury and all that kind of stuff for so long. Now, the Clippers have been doing pretty well here, but there was a recent poll that came out, and I'm always interested in this. I'm always keeping an eye on this Lakers versus Clippers rivalry because, like you said, the Lakers haven't been good in a while, and they've been it hasn't been easy to watch them, at least for the casual fan, right? But the recent poll came out and said that the Lakers have actually just dropped below the Dodgers in terms of being the most popular team in Los Angeles, but it was extremely close. The Dodgers got 36% of the vote. The Lakers got 35%. This is a poll conducted by Loyola Marymount. But the Clippers only got 7% of the vote. I mean, the LA Galaxy got 5% of the vote. The Clippers got 7% of the vote, and you're seeing a Clippers team that's being successful, that is actually, getting into the playoffs. And if they can keep everyone healthy, which they haven't been able to, but if they can keep everyone healthy, they would have at least a puncher's chance at winning a championship, and yet they still can't seem to make up ground in Los Angeles. So you think that the LA will just always be a Lakers town, and that's the way it is?
Yes, factual. Two reasons why. One, the Lakers have been here longer and they've won championships, and also, a few reasons. They've had the bigger stars for so many years. I mean, Magic Johnson, now that Vince Scully is retired, I mean, is there a bigger sports figure in LA, even though he's, 50, almost 60 years old? Is there anyone bigger than Magic Johnson? I would say no. Obviously, Kobe's right there as well, but when you think of the Lakers, you think of something that I think people can hang on to, right? If I'm from LA, I'm from Los Angeles, like I have that. I have something that's winning in my life. I have something that, I feel a part of that's highly successful. Even in maybe my regular life day to day, it's okay. It's, nothing to write home to mom about. But I have my Lakers. We kick everybody's butts. We're always in the finals. We win. We have Kobe. We have Shaq. We have Kareem. We have Magic. We have so-and-so. And I think they have had that. It's something that it almost feels a part of your family. And I think with the Clippers, the bad part is, here's where they messed up, Trevor. They messed up in the last 5 or 6 years by not, and we always just say, oh, they never even made the Western Conference Finals. But that really matters in that maybe that 7% could have gone up to 17%. Maybe it'll never be too high, maybe even just 14%. But had they gone to the finals, let's say in 5 years they went to the finals twice and won one, and then maybe another extra Western Conference Final in there. So let's say they have been, really the Warriors like, and then maybe they didn't have to win 73 games. But my point is, had they been that, you would have had now over the 5-6 years, think about it. If I was 12 years old when Blake got here and I became a fan, now I'm 17, 18, 19 years old, give or take, and I've known nothing but success, and I've known nothing but championships or being close to championships. And maybe that would skew that young formative team. That guy, again, that kid that's 10 years old, 11 years old. But because they have been good but not great, kind of average when they get to the playoffs, they have been very pouty. They didn't continue to embrace Lob City. Remember they did Lob City for like 1 year, and they were like, oh, we're not Lob City. We don't like that. No, run with that.
Yeah.
The Showtime Lakers didn't go, well, hey, by the way, we're no longer the Showtime Lakers after a season or two. I'm from the Detroit area, Ann Arbor specifically. The Bad Boys didn't go, hey, with that bad boy thing. They're hanging on to that right now. They're probably walking to your local yard house and, say, back in the day, I was a bad boy. And so the idea that the Clippers didn't continue to embrace that, have an identity, I think that was a mistake as well. Now let's get to the Laker-Dodger conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know about that poll, brother. I don't know about that poll. Here's why. When I moved to LA, it was, what were they, Time Warner then, now Spectrum.
Yes.
Got the rights to the Lakers. And I remember moving here. I moved here like September 1st, I believe. Basketball was coming up right around the corner. Preseason games, okay. And all of a sudden, the Lakers aren't on television. And I said, this is strange. Let me check around. Maybe I'm missing it. Nope, they're not on. And the Lakers weren't on television for like 2 games or something. And all of a sudden, the Lakers were right back on. The Dodgers have not been on television for what now? Are we in 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah.
And there's no big outcry. No one seems to care. No one seems to make a big fuss about it. yet the Lakers missed like a game or two or whatever it was, and they're back on. To me, that will forever be my litmus test. That will be how I gauge, is that the Lakers couldn't go a game without being on television. The Dodgers can go seasons, and everyone seems to be okay. When I walk places, when people, if they recognize who I am, or somehow they, or just a casual conversation, no one really brings up the Dodgers to me. And I don't know if it's because of the, is it the circle I'm in? Is it the places I attend? I don't know. But, I mean, I'm not saying no one. What I'm saying, it doesn't weigh in comparison to the Lakers. If someone flew in town right now, a friend of even yours, just say you had a bud. Are you from here originally?
Yeah, I am.
So let's say you have a friend or family that comes in from the East Coast or the South.
Yep.
And they say they know you have the hookup. You're all about Lakers. Do you think they want to go to a Laker game or they want to go to a Dodger game?
Oh, they'd want to go to a Laker game.
Exactly. So, and not that they would never want to go to a Dodger game, but if you said you had one crack at it, they would choose the Lakers.
Right.
So I think that was a test based off my frustration with the Lakers, and I'll take it out via this poll. But I don't really know about the reality of popularity, though. I don't know about that, Trevor.
I'm with you on that. When I was looking at the numbers of the poll, the thought popped into my head of, could this just be, the Lakers have not been a good team now for a while. They realistically, they made the playoffs 5 seasons ago, but that wasn't a fun team. That was the Dwight Howard years with him sulking and all that. So they haven't been fun in a long time. So how much of this is just, I don't want to vote for a bad team, even though they're still the team I pay the most attention to. I don't want to associate with a bad team in this poll or anything like that. And I think that's coming into play here. So they just vote Dodgers because that's the next one on the list.
Completely agree. Because couldn't you make an argument that over the last 10, 15 years, the Dodgers are the Clippers? And I don't mean popularity. Dodgers have a heritage here. They've won here. They have success. They have big names. They have guys that we know about. Kershaw arguably may go down as the greatest pitcher to ever live. So I'm not saying that, but what I mean is the expectations matching what we end up getting in the final results. Couldn't you say that?
Yeah. I mean, there is an argument there.
Couldn't you say that Clayton Kershaw and Chris Paul have something in common where they're the best at, like, Chris Paul has been the best point guard for a decade. Obviously, a guy pops in a year or two here or there, but for the last 10, 12 years, Chris Paul has been the best point guard. Clayton Kershaw has been the best pitcher. Don't we always say something about their postseason? Man, Clayton Kershaw, the postseason, I don't know what goes on. I don't know the Giants get him. Can't do well against them. Can't do well against so-and-so. And then we have this with the Clippers. Chris Paul, man, he can't get it done. I know he's a great player, but for some reason he can't get it done. So there's some similarity there when you talk about the actual outcome. Not the popularity, but just the outcome. Well, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, man. They're going to do well. I believe they led the majors in attendance the last couple of seasons. So they're still the Dodgers. Don't get it twisted. They're very popular. That brand goes far. I mean, I remember wearing LA Dodger gear in Michigan. Not even a huge fan or anything. I just love the freaking hat, So I mean, they're still the Dodgers. So I'm not saying as if that poll should have gone 45% Lakers, 20% Dodgers. I'm not saying it's like that, but I think you brought up a great point that just the frustration with the Lakers makes you click on someone else maybe in that poll, even if deep down you still would prefer the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think that's what's at play here. And I think once the Lakers come back, they're really going to come back with a vengeance. Once they do get a new star player in place, I think then we're going to see Lakers fandom take off again, just like it has been. The Lakers are the most popular franchise in the NBA. You could argue they're the most popular franchise in sports. So they are going to come back, and I think the LA market is just theirs. I mean, people grow up with the Lakers. We talked off the air a little bit. I've got a 9-month-old. You have a 5 or 6-month-old, and when my daughter was just born, one of the first things I did with her was put her in a Lakers onesie. Right? I mean, it's kind of what we do. We raise our kids to be Lakers fans. I think it's just ingrained into Southern California culture. We'll get back to more great stuff with Kelvin Washington in just a second because I want to pause for a moment and talk about shaving. It's one of my least favorite parts of the day because the razors I use are always way too dull. I hang on to them way too long because they're super expensive to replace, And by the time I finally give in and actually go to the store to buy more of them, I usually forget to buy them while I'm getting everything else that's on my grocery list. It's really frustrating, and I wind up with these razors that are super dull and irritating my skin. Well, I finally found a solution to the problem, and that's HAYWARD razors. HAYWARD delivers high-quality razors right to your door, so no forgetting them at the grocery store. The quality is actually so much better than what I buy at the store, and the best part is they cost about half the price. The handle grips perfectly in your hand, and 5 German-engineered blades provide a smooth, close shave. HAYWARD is so confident in the quality of their blades, they want you to try their trial set for free. This comes with a razor handle of your choice and a 5-blade cartridge plus shaving gel. Again, it's free when you sign up. All you pay is shipping and handling. To redeem your trial offer, go to harrys.com/Lakers. That's right, they made it that easy to remember. harrys.com/Lakers.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What happens if it's another 4 years before they're really good? Like, I imagine we both agree they're going to get better, but what if it's another 4 years before they're really good? I mean, would this be the worst almost decade that the Lakers have ever had as far as just not only simply wins and losses, but even just the popularity as far as watching the games? Like, I mean, it's been a bore to watch. I'm going to be frank with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and if they go another 4 years like this, and also what will help Trevor, my gosh, can somebody have a little personality, please? Like, even if they weren't great, but you had a guy who was a character who had some pizzazz to him, man, I mean, who is that? Who is it?
I mean, every once in a while, D'Angelo Russell gets ice in his veins, but other than that, I mean, Nick Young, right? That's about it.
And that ride may be ending. So
yeah,
that worries me a bit.
Yeah, they do seem to need a big new personality. Although who knows? Depending on their draft situation, if they end up keeping their pick, they could end up with Lonzo Ball and his dad LaVar on the sidelines there.
Oh Lord, I feel like I'm talking to Marcellus right now. I think he's a bigger fan of LaVar Ball than LaVar Ball's wife. I mean, he loves LaVar Ball, and I take LaVar Ball with a grain of salt. I appreciate what he's trying to do from a business end. I appreciate the love that he has for his sons, but the outrageousness that he says and the whole tongue-in-cheek, and he knows that, the idea of any publicity is good publicity. I'll say whatever. He's wearing thin on me. However, his son is I think he is the real deal. I think he's only going to get better, and I think his game fits the NBA. Wide open, 94 feet. You're allowed to create more in college. You know how it is. They restrict you a bit. You must pass the ball 5 times, and you got to do this. And the coach is the biggest personality. In the NBA, man, they're going to be like, go. The floor is yours. So that would be cool to see him end up with the Lakers. And every now and again, we get that. Derrick Rose is the Chicago kid. He somehow lands with Chicago.
LeBron in Cleveland.
LeBron is the Northeast Ohio guy. He lands with them. So we get that every now and again, and it seems as though there's a possibility, a chance of it happening again.
I said that the other day on a quick little breakdown show that I did on Lonzo Ball, and it just feels like he's kind of destined to wind up with the Lakers. And hey, let me ask you, would you take him number 1?
Okay, am I the Lakers or am I any team?
Let's say if you're the Lakers and the Lakers land number 1, would you take Lonzo?
I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think you have to because Magic Johnson will get both ends of it. The boy can play, and let's say even in your grading room, right? You say, was it Markelle Fultz?
Yeah.
We have him at a 9. I'm just making it up. We have him at a 9.8. We have Lonzo at a 9.5 or something like that. Well, that's not a big enough difference to skip on a kid who's here, who wants to be here, who understands what it is to be a Laker, who seems to play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think your fans would want that, and and to be able to have a little star power, I think Magic would get that. Now, if there's a real gap, meaning you think Markelle Fultz is the real deal, or Jackson from Kansas, or whoever the case may be, and you're like, man, that kid is a 9, and we have 9.5 even, and we have Ball at an 8.5. Then if there's a real gap, then I think you don't go with him simply that, for that. But I do think if there's a marginal gap between he and maybe the other guys you're looking at on your board, you got to go with him, right? It only makes sense.
Yeah, if it's close, you go with him. But if there is that gap like you're talking about, then I think you got to go with the player that you think is the best. If you think that's Markelle Fultz, you go with him, and then you're going to deal with the fan backlash for a couple of months, maybe a month before the summer league starts, and then once fans get to see them play, that ends, right? I mean, that's what happened with Porzingis with the Knicks. Everybody was booing when he was drafted by New York. A few weeks later, they see him play in summer league, and everything gets smoothed over. So I think the Lakers would just need to kind of ride out that rough period if they selected somebody other than Fultz, if, of course, the basketball gods smile upon Los Angeles and give them the number 1 overall pick, right?
Yeah, and I do think, though, the biggest thing is I don't think anyone differentiated themselves that dramatically. I mean, if you go Fultz, I can't argue. If you go Ball, I can't argue. If you go Jackson, if you were to go, the kid, one of the guards from Kentucky, I mean, I don't think anyone stood out that dramatically where you feel like you have to, which is also a good thing for the Lakers in that if they do get the 3rd pick, and Ball goes 2nd or first, and Fultz is gone, and then you look up, I mean, the kid Jackson from Kansas,
he's good.
He is a beast, and maybe maybe you're looking at a situation where you almost lucked out that you didn't have to draft Ball, and you maybe were able to get somebody you actually wanted. Think about that. Yeah. Maybe you didn't want to draft Ball, but you didn't want to, like you talked about, the scrutiny of the fans or backlash or chance of missing out on a hometown star. But maybe Jackson fits with having him on a wing, with Brandon Ingram on a wing as well, and then you got D'Angelo Russell bringing the ball up. That
it's intriguing. That's for sure.
That is. I definitely think this is this better not be the draft they end up out of because they lost their pick when it was actually a deeper draft than we've had the last few seasons. Like, that would really suck to have the draft where it looks like you almost have 4, 5, 6 guys maybe in the top 10, 12 picks that you really can't miss with, and then this is the year they're out of the draft. And,
I don't mean to be negative or anything, but the odds are that that's what's going to happen. I mean, 53% chance that they don't have their pick this year.
Well, yeah, and not to mention the odds and the fact that you would have done it 3 years in a row. I mean, my goodness. Can the basketball gods smile on you anymore?
Right. Right. And it's not just the one pick at stake either. It's the 2019 pick that's at play too. I mean, if they lose their pick this year, they also lose their 2019 first rounder. So there's a lot to be nervous about on draft day, which is May 16th.
Yeah, you're right about that, and the fans are smart enough to know that and remember that, and that's why, again, when I mentioned earlier, I said, man, what if it's another 4 or 5 years of either bad to what I call aight, some aight basketball. That's gonna be rough considering you won't have a draft pick, after in 2 years. So if they were to lose this pick, and meaning if there's another stud. And you're looking at a few of them, you can't get them. It'll be rough. That's why free agency and being smart with it is going to be important, meaning you can't just shoot for the huge big names. Maybe you have to kind of be strategic and find some nice pieces here or there that you look up in 2 years, you say, wow, that was a great fit with these young guys.
Right. You got to find good value contracts. I mean, that's what the NBA is all about. But at the same time, you got to find that superstar too that can bring it all together, and that brings me to something here that just recently happened, just within the last few days. Larry Bird just stepped down as president of the Indiana Pacers, and of course we know all the trade rumors have been swirling that the Lakers are going to go after Paul George, and I'm sure they won't be the only team, but still now you've got Larry Bird stepping down. That seems to potentially signal that the Pacers are preparing for a rebuild and potentially dealing Paul George. Do you see Larry Bird being gone having a big impact on that?
Yeah. Let's start with why did Larry leave? I mean,
that's the question, really.
Did he leave because he didn't want to do a rebuild? The idea that if Paul George were to leave this summer, meaning they do some type of sign and trade or something, or just trade him because they know they're probably going to lose him next year. Do I want to go through a rebuild? Am I? I don't have that in me anymore. I mean, you got this Larry freaking Bird here we're talking about. Right. So he's used to being successful. Think about this. He's the only player in history to be an MVP of the league, coach of the year, and executive of the year. So he's had a lot of success. And so I think it'll be difficult to go through that again. And now let's kind of talk about Paul George. It is going to be interesting. To Paul George, because here's the thing. Does Paul George want money? Does he want to win? Or does he want both? I don't know. Because if you simply tell me that, I want to come home and play for the Lakers, then you're telling me you don't want to win. Because you're not going to win here for some time. Let's just be honest. Because if they had to trade for you, they're going to have to give up pieces and assets to get you. If they wait a year for you, unless you're pulling a LeBron and you're saying whoever else is available that year and you know you're going to bring yourself and that other guy, and of course, hopefully by then some of these young guys have stepped their game up, now you have something. But if it's just simply Paul George with the Lakers, and then think about it again, if there's a subtraction, meaning you have to give up some players, then really, what was there to gain? So then now you're telling me it's about lifestyle, it's about me being in LA, it's not about winning, which is perfectly fine, but now I'll know that. What if, Trevor? Yeah. What if he's always said I want to play in LA? What if it's not for the Lakers? What if it's to be that piece that the Clippers needed? What if it's we're going to lose Blake next year, or we're going to lose Blake this year. They're going to lose Paul George next year. Why don't we do some type of trade and, sign and trade thing?
Talking about trading Blake Griffin for Paul George?
Yeah. I mean, what if LA doesn't mean Lakers?
It's possible, I suppose. He did grow up as a huge Lakers fan and a big fan, particularly of Magic Johnson. But still, I suppose the Clippers is still LA. It's not like winning with the Lakers.
And I've also heard he grew up a Clipper fan. So I've heard that too. I don't know, but that's going to be a difficult choice for him. Do I want to be the star who can try to resurrect the Lakers and be that guy, or again? Do I stick around in Indiana and get all that extra money up to potentially, $70-80 million right, if he's to make an All NBA team, which we should know here shortly. A lot of decisions, I can imagine. I would love to have that problem. Think about 70-80 extra million I could make if I stayed another, and signed another deal with the Pacers.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind to be in that spot. That'd be nice.
Man, I'm telling you, man, life is good at that point. Life is good already for yourself, myself. Hey, we're living. We got jobs. We have beautiful children. But I love that challenge too. But also, when you talk about Paul George with the Lakers, I'm shocked. On our show for about 2 days, we discussed this and kind of turned it over to the people and opened up the phone lines, and they shocked me how many people. I would jump to say 70% said they either don't want him or don't trade, or if you do trade, absolutely not. You're not giving up Brandon Ingram. Yep. I was shocked to hear that. I thought more people would be game for it.
Yep, I've been seeing the exact same thing. You know what? I think it's the whole Carmelo Anthony effect. I've talked about it on this show. A few years ago, the Knicks traded just about every asset they had to bring in Carmelo Anthony, and then once they got him, they didn't have anything left to really do much with him. And I think fans see that. Fans are starting to become smarter in the NBA, and they realize that, hey, if you give up your top 3 pick, say they land number 3, right, and the Lakers trade that and Brandon Ingram to the Pacers for Paul George, well, then you bring Paul George in, and you don't have many assets left to move to add in other players around him. And then you're kind of stuck. And really the worst thing you can be in the NBA is not bad. The worst thing you can be is just mediocre. A treadmill team, one of those teams that's stuck in the middle, can never be bad enough to get a high pick and never good enough to really contend. And so I think fans are seeing that. And so there's some trepidation there. Plus you've got the whole situation with him being a free agent in 2018. That's going to happen, whether he's a Laker or a Pacer. And I think fans still remember what happened with Dwight Howard. And they don't want to go through another year of, is he going to stay, is he going to leave?
Yeah, but I do think there's a little difference between him. I think he's expressed the desire to be in L.A., specifically Laker. He's from the area. It's a little different than the Dwight. Plus, Kobe isn't here to berate him if he's not playing well enough with a bad back as Kobe did Dwight. So it'll be a little different in that case. But, you bring up great points. Fans are aware of that. And let me ask you this. Would you have been a DeMarcus Cousins for Brandon Ingram guy?
No, I was not a DeMarcus Cousins for Brandon Ingram guy because of those reasons, because of the pending free agency and because it wasn't just going to be Brandon Ingram, it was going to be Brandon Ingram plus the Kings wanted other pieces too, and I think that would have been pushing it.
Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
Do you think he is the type of guy, and obviously it didn't happen, but just hypothetical here, that would then possibly draw a Paul George or Westbrook? Meaning, man, shoot. I always wanted to play for the Lakers. I always want to go back home if you're Westbrook, if you're Paul George. And they already got, now they got a couple of young pieces, and they got DeMarcus Cousins, and they would have me. Do you think that would have worked?
Maybe, but and I get the premise. If you add one player, you can bring in others. I think Cousins in particular is a bit problematic with doing that, just because I mean his temperament is a bit notorious around the league, and so
Yeah.
I don't know how many players are lining up to go play with DeMarcus Cousins, but that is the big decision the Lakers are going to have to make here. I mean, if you trade a few pieces and get Paul George, does that then become the bait to bring in another piece at some point? And do you have the ammunition left to get that piece? And that's a tough call.
That is the tough call. Do you bring in a star just to have a star, just so that even though people are still going to go to Staples Center and watch the games, they at least get to see a guy who can drop 30 a night consistently? And also, I remember hearing Jeannie Buss and Magic talk about the fact that the All-Star game is here next year, and they're saying, we want to have an All-Star in the game. We don't want to just have all these, people in our town, lights, camera, action, and we don't, we don't have a single guy that's like the host, similar to how it was in New Orleans, and you saw what Anthony Davis was, and even winning the All-Star MVP. So a lot of decisions to be made for the Lakers, man, which should make for an interesting summer.
Absolutely, it's always interesting with the Lakers. It's year long with this team, which is what makes it so fun to cover them. But yeah, there's going to be some major decisions to be made this year. And I mean, Magic Johnson is new at his job as president of basketball operations. Rob Pelinka is new at his job as general manager. So we're going to get them tested pretty quickly. They're going to have to figure things out fast on the fly, and we'll see how successful they are. I mean, we got to just keep our fingers crossed for right now.
Absolutely, and I think everybody's doing it. Matter of fact, Trevor, they might be crossing their arms and legs as well as fingers.
Well, we know Byron Scott is certainly crossing his arms.
I like that. That's a good one. Oh, B. Scott. Oh, man.
Hey, Kelvin, before I get you out of here, we always wrap up every show with some sort of a story. I have so many guests that come on here, and they all have interactions with players and personalities from around the sports world that never really make it into a report, never make it on air, just kind of fun interactions that they've had that fans always seem to enjoy hearing about. Do you have anything from your time in the sports world that you can share?
Some of the best stories that you can imagine you can't share.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. This will go more for, we talked about in the beginning of the show how ESPN and, obviously the layoffs, and maybe there's some young people who are listening to the podcast who, want to be in this industry and things. And I'll tell you to keep the fight, man, keep pushing, because cool things can happen in this life. I was just a kid who grew up very modestly and eventually kind of figured out what I wanted to do in life. And one of the things growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, of course, is that, University of Michigan football is king, right? Of course. So growing up, Desmond Howard, who was a Heisman Trophy winner, was a legend there, was my idol. I'd go outside after the games and try to dive in the lawn and catch passes like he caught. And it's funny how life goes, man, because I looked up to him in that facet, in that lane. And then all of a sudden, years later, I befriended him, and we became really good friends. And it's funny, even now and then he'll text me for my thoughts, and he'll text me and ask me about my thoughts on the college football world or this game or that. And it's crazy how life goes for me, to want to be in this sports world when I realized what I wanted to do, to grow up being a fan of his and grow up watching all of his plays and catches, and now to be a not only a colleague, but a friend, and working in the same vein with him, and have him pick my brain and text me about thoughts about games. It's a pretty cool thing. And it just kind of shows you how, you want something, you pursue it, good things can happen. And even when I moved to LA, I remember moving here and obviously trying to find a sports station on my dial, and I would listen to ESPNLA, and I'd listen to Max and Marcellus, and it was like, wow, this is a cool show and cool station. And as time went on, to work for that station, and then to end up kind of sort of knowing Marcellus, like, hey, man, what's up, man, to then having our show, the Marcellus and Kelvin Show, and now I can call him a friend and hear some of his stories that we could never tell you on it.
I bet.
I mean, he already tells someone on our show that I'm like, brother, I can't believe you just said that. And that's why the saying is, he keeps it 105, I keep it 95. Therefore, we meet in the middle and keep it 100 on our show. To have listened to the show and now to be a part of it and have him as a friend and be the Marcellus and Kelvin Show, man. It's been a fun ride for me. I'll say that, and that goes for a lot of people. Again, don't be dismayed or detoured by what has happened recently with ESPN. Good things can happen, man, if you work hard and kind of put your nose to the ground and keep working hard and treating people fairly and right. Good things can happen, and you'll meet some pretty cool people along the way that you once looked up to or admired, and you can kind of call them friends and colleagues. It's a cool thing.
Well, that's awesome. That's a great message to wrap up with. Kelvin, thank you so much for coming on our show. Really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. Anytime, man. And good luck with everything going your way. And I'll take some baby advice since your baby's a few months ahead of mine.
Sure, no problem. I'll pass along anything I come across. Sound machines, by the way, are a lifesaver. I'll tell you that.
What's that? Say that again.
A sound machine is a lifesaver.
Oh, man, let me explain something to you, brother. We got portable ones. We've got mobile ones. I mean, you never know when you need to bust out some white noise. So
absolutely.
I'm with you.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, man. I will definitely send along any baby advice I've got for you. And again, appreciate you coming on the show. We'll have to do this again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
You too. Great stuff from Kelvin Washington. Make sure to tune in to the Marcellus and Kelvin Show on ESPNLA. That's going to wrap things up for today. As always, you can find this show on iTunes, Stitcher, the CLNS radio app, TuneIn, and of course, LakersNation.com. My name is Trevor Lane, and this is Courtcast by Lakers Nation.